saw the numbers there. We have 3 major races that are going on in the Hudson Valley, the 17th, the 18th, and 19th. We know the problems that Maloney has because he switched districts. He's not really running in the same district that he's won in the last 10 years. There's concerns, at least among Democrats, that 2 of those districts should perhaps go Republican. What can we say? I mean, what struck me as odd, and Tony in some of his reporting covered it, that people in the Hudson Valley are even reacting to the crime issue, which strikes me as rather strange, but maybe not. Basil, what do you make of it?
Well, there are a couple of things. One, I think that it should not be overlooked that redistricting shifted a lot.
Yes,
For
absolutely.
a lot of these candidates. You had Mondaire Jones having to leave to come all the way
to the 10th,
down, you know, and run down in sort of that lower Manhattan district. And so a lot had changed for these candidates. A lot of their districts cut up, a lot of their supporters split apart. But the thing about Maloney, which was interesting, is that, yes, he does chair the DCCC. And, you know, for him in particular, and having worked at the state party, if the national party, if the national Democratic leaders are saying, we got to go save you, that's a problem. They don't want to have to be in that position. And it speaks a little bit to Maloney, but I think in the broader sense, it speaks to how the districts have really shifted a lot of politics in our state. And what we're seeing now is that some of the assembly seats and some of the state Senate seats might from Democrats might flip to a Republican seat. And yes, it probably has something to do with Lee Zeldin at the top of the ticket, but it also is a statement about how redistricting matters.
Yeah, and Javier, I'm sorry, Robert, but you want to go ahead?
No, I was just going to say, it also speaks kind of to a certain level of hubris that caused the state party to get into this position.
The Democrats.
Yeah, because you're speaking about the redistricting, because they tried to maximize the redistricting to such a point that even the High Court found it unconstitutional, and then appointed a special master to carve up the districts, ended up putting a number of Democrats into a more vulnerable position than they might have had they just played it had they just played the redistricting game square. And so you've had this ripple effect, which is leading to, you know, Maloney jumping districts and Mondaire Jones now out of Congress, and so forth. And so this is now really coming back to bite them on the posterior.
Yeah, but all that being said, but the word redistricting and fair has never been in the same sentence, right? And you got to admit, the way the master carved things up, and Javier, I'll let you weigh in on this, and you'll be happy to weigh in on this, I'm sure, was kind of almost comical. I mean, to see what they did to Manhattan, Carolyn Maloney, Gerald Nadler, it was just strange. I mean, it's one thing to fix a problem, it's another thing to maybe turn everything upside down.
Yeah, 100%. It basically squeezed out as many competitive districts as you could possibly bring out of New York. That's what we saw on the special masters map. And I think it's really interesting, you know, right now when we're talking about Republicans, right, needing to pick up a couple of seats in the House, they can take back control of the House just with the 5 competitive seats that we have between,
in New York,
in the Hudson Valley, and 2 on Long Island, right? And so I think we're you know, Democrats are in a tough position right now, you know?
Yeah, I mean, hubris is fair, what Robert says, but the flip of this whole thing is really extraordinary. And in some ways, as Basil says, and maybe you did say this, you tell me, but that might be more of a factor than anything else in this race when we think about the congressional seats, correct?
It's not just,
and it's not just the congressional seats.
And it's not just, you know, hubris on the redistricting front. It's also, you know, all of this, the entire redistricting that happened came because New York failed on the census, right? We came down, you know, Andrew Cuomo did not prioritize the census, right? We came in a couple of hundred votes under, and we ended up losing, right, a seat, and that caused this entire mess. And so there's a lot of blame to be had, I think.
I would not be the good Democrat that I am without talking about this issue of hubris. Because, and I understand what you're saying, and I don't think you're wrong, but to be fair, Republicans have done this for a very long time.
Really?
They're pretty good at
they
it.
did?
That's true, but they're pretty good at it. But they're pretty good at it. And so maybe, and so maybe, taking a page, Democrats push their luck a little too much, because they wouldn't necessarily be able to get away with that in New York.
But the problem is that the problem is, though, the people of the voters wanted to have
something more nonpartisan,
a nonpartisan redistricting process, and the legislature instead went with a very partisan one, and that's why they lost the court
that
case.
part might be, so the hubris I think lies there, as opposed to Democrats just saying, "Hey, we want a couple more seats."
No. I mean,
yes.
traditionally, you're absolutely right. That, gerrymandering is an awful practice that both parties, try to game plan as much as they can. But in New York, they specifically passed a constitutional amendment saying this has to go through a commission. And at the first chance they got, though, the legislature said, "Oh, the commission can't really do this, so we're going to do it." And here we are.
And it's gone all the way down, and even possibly down to the city council level, which we haven't gotten through yet. That's another battle for another day.